Here we have 40.68 grams of carbon, 5.08 grams of hydrogen, and 54.2 grams of oxygen. Our first step is to find the empirical formula and then find the molecular formula. Remember, the empirical formula is it in simplest form. So that if you're started with a percent composition or grams of each element, you would be finding the empirical first. Same process, 40.68 grams carbon, 5.08 grams hydrogen, 54.2 grams oxygen. We convert it to moles. So there are 12.01 grams of carbon in 1 mole. You get that right off the periodic table. 1.01 grams of hydrogen in 1 mole of hydrogen. And 16.00 grams of oxygen in 1 mole of oxygen. So let's find out how many moles for each one of these there are. 40.68 divided by 12.01, 3.387, 5.08 divided by 1.01, 4.618, 54.2 divided by 16.00, 3.387. So now we divide by the least. So 3.387, 3.387, they're both the least. So that's okay, 3.387. We still have to divide every single one by the least number of moles. And that gives us 1 for carbon. And it gives us 1 for oxygen. 4.618. Divided by 3.387 gives us 1.36 for hydrogen. Okay, so for general chem, you would round that 1.36 to 1 mole. All right, so if you are in general chem, as I said, you would be rounding that off to 1 mole from 1.36. And so your formula would be C1H1O1. That's if you're in general. If you're in honors, 1.36 would be rounded to 1.5. So you would have C1H1.5O1 or C2H3O2 when you got rid of that fraction. If you're in IB, you would have C1H1.25 because it's closer to that quarter than to 1.5 O1, and you would multiply by 4, C4H5O4. And those would be your different empirical formulas. They are all in simplest form. It's just that this guy over here for IB is a little bit more exact. Now to find the molecular formula from the empirical formula, we have to find the empirical formula's molar mass. And I'm just going to use general, but the same format works in IB and honors too. You have 1 carbon plus 1 hydrogen plus 1 oxygen. So you have 12.01 plus 1.01 plus 16.00, 29.02 grams in 1 mole of the empirical formula CHO. And now you know the molecular formula has a molar mass of 118.1 grams per mole. So you just divide it by the empirical, 29.02 grams per mole. Grams per mole gets canceled on both sides. 118.1 divided by 29.02 gives me a multiplier of 4. Regardless of who you are, it's a whole number. It doesn't matter if you're in general, in honors, or in IB. You just write down the whole number as your multiplier. And so now my molecular formula would be 4 times C1H1O1, which would be C4H4O4. And again, this answer is what you would get for the General, you would have to go back again and do that and fine tune it with the IB and the honors ones.